when I decided to start bringing adventure into my life, the primary motive really was I wanted to challenge myself. I was living a pretty normal, mundane, grey sort of life, and I started being curious about what I was capable of really achieving. So I wanted to set myself a challenge. I jumped on my bike and I set off to cycle around the world, and it was certainly tough. It ticked the boxes of misery and suffering. It doesn't have to be fun, but what really struck me when I arrived back home after 4 years away was that the hardest part of the whole journey had been just having this big idea and then having the nerve to just get on my bike and start, and really everything was quite easy. So it's not just about the challenge. This is the Kaveri River, holy river in southern India. I'd never heard of it until I decided to walk across India from coast to coast. It's not a very famous part of India. It's not in the Lonely Planet. It's just a normal slice of everyday life. But if you've never seen that before, then every horizon is new, then every horizon is extra exciting. And this real sense of wanderlust is a massive part of what I do. And I think this signpost that I saw in Uzbekistan sums it up. Standing in front of that, wow, look at all those places. Shall I carry on to Samarkand? Shall I turn left to Kabul, on to Ashgabat, Akhtal, Baku? The sheer variety of exciting possibilities when you head off down the road. And of course, the problem that then leads is once you start doing these sort of things, you've really opened a bit of a Pandora's box and you're cursed. And the realization of the incredible variety that's out there in the world. If I spent the rest of my life traveling down all the roads, I wouldn't see every road in the world, you wouldn't see every country. There's so much variety, there's so much to do. There's so little time to do it in, and this then becomes quite an addictive part of adventuring for me, and I find myself constantly wanting to try new things, go to new places. This was learning to fly in Spain last year, and just the variety and the potential for just doing amazing stuff once you just take that bold decision to set off and begin your first adventure. There's also a fair degree of escapism and running away in what I do. This is Iceland. I crossed Iceland last year, unsupported on foot and by packraft, this little boat that you see here. It was quite a tough trip, but to my mind, being out there in the wild is so much easier than being back at home, facing real life, sitting at my desk, filling in my tax return. Similarly here, up on the Arctic Ocean, hundreds of miles from the nearest town, and this sense of wildness, the realization that, wow, even in our crazy, overpopulated 21st century world, there are areas of such silent wildness as that is a real thrill and something that drives me on. This is Mount Illimani in the Andes, 6,500 meters of failure. This is the highest mountain that I've failed to climb at, to turn around just short of the summit when my friend was ill, and I was pretty gutted to fail at that. But when you pit yourself against nature, the flip side of the rewards are being humbled, put back in your place, and realizing that actually we are a very, very small cog, and it just gives a great sense of perspective. If ever you start to feel you're quite important, you should go on a little boat out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, thousands of miles from the nearest bit of land, and just look around you, and you realize that actually sending the odd email here and there is not necessarily the end of it. So wildness is hugely important to me, but of all of my travel experiences, the most rewarding ones are the people you meet. And what is interesting is that when you travel, the further you travel away from your front door, normal people start to appear exotic. And also, as you travel away from your front door, you become increasingly exotic just by the prospect of being very, very far away from home. And this is up in the Arctic. I went out for a ride with a skidoo with an Inuit elder, and the lessons that people like that taught me about climate change, their life, in just a short time when you have these fleeting interactions is so much more powerful than any amount of sitting at home reading books. And travel and adventure, one of the real privileges, the real wonders of it is the freedom you have. This is camping out on a salt lake in Bolivia. You're your own boss, you plot your own route, you have the freedom to do what you want. The flip side of that, of course, is you have then the responsibility. When you're doing something, no one knows what you're doing, no one cares what you're doing. It's your responsibility just to set your own high standards and not just cut corners. When I was cycling through the Yukon, my road was blocked by forest fires. Instead of jumping on a bus, I got hold of a canoe and paddled for 500 miles down a river until I was past the fire and could get onto the bike again. It's the freedom of choice is something that is a real privilege. So our 21st century lives are ridiculously busy, and some of what we do is quite important. A lot of it really isn't. And I love the simplicity that you can get. It's, running an ultra marathon in the Sahara, 6 marathons, 6 days. It's quite hot, it's quite miserable. All you have to do, though, is just get up, eat, sleep, and run. And I just loved that simplicity of life. Or rowing from the UK across to France with a paralysed soldier who chain-smoked the whole way across. I chain-vomited the whole way across. He listened to Welsh regimental marching music the whole way across, had the portrait of the Queen gaffer taped to the front, therefore it was officers' mess rules. It was hell, but at least it was a simple kind of hell. Now, you have to be very careful of anyone who stands up and pontificates about expeditions being about challenge and perspective and simplicity. The real reason people do stuff like this is because it is fun, and that's the chance to go and do fun things in wild, beautiful parts of the world is something I'm very grateful for. And so this is my time for a bit of a call to action for people. Go and do an adventure. Go and challenge yourself to do something. All you have to do is be bold. You don't have to go very far. You don't have to go and climb Mount Everest. You just have to come up with an idea, and then crucially, you have to take the first step, leap in, and begin. The rest is easy. You don't have to go very far. You can have a very small adventure. You can have a micro-adventure. This year is my year of micro-adventures, and these are deliberately, almost provocatively small and mundane experiences, which hopefully prove the fact that in a carefully planned weekend away, you can tick most of the thrills and excitement of all of the mad, huge journeys you'll hear about tonight. And Britain is beautiful. England, Scotland, Wales, even my desk is beautiful. You just have to look a little bit differently at things, change your perspective, think a bit differently, look a bit differently, and if you do that, there is beauty and adventure all around us, and all that you need to do is just take the first step to go and find it. Everything else after that is very much easy. Thank you very much.